Yeah. Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside, feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly flair, oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist, so rare. Fuji's Philly flair, we're living the care.
Good evening, everybody. Another episode of Fuji's Philly Flair. Tonight, I want to welcome Philly native, a lady that wears many hats. I'm being joined by a powerhouse in the sports broadcasting and a dynamic voice in the media, a woman who continues to break barriers while bringing the Philly passion and the authenticity to every platform she touches. Please help me welcome Miss Renee Washington. Hey, Renee, how you doing?
I'm great,
Welcome.
Mike. Thanks for the intro.
Go ahead. You're most welcome. I mean, it's like you're everywhere. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep it going, but you bring the energy representing Philly, 3-time Hall of Famer, All-American soccer player at LaSalle University. And you bring it.
Thank you.
And, can you get into a little bit of your time at LaSalle playing soccer to get started?
Sure, yeah. So it's crazy because it doesn't feel like it's been so long, but it's been 12 years since I graduated from LaSalle. And I still remember like it was yesterday because of just the experiences that I had to be a part of the LaSalle women's soccer team. I also ran track while I was there. And during my time at LaSalle, I was a part of a number of firsts. We as a team accomplished, we were nationally ranked my sophomore year. I myself had a number of individual accolades and all conference accolades and national accolades, as you mentioned, being a 3-time All-American, recognized for my athletic and academics, as well as I was also an academic All-American. And then we were a part of the group that had the chance to win the first Atlantic 10 tournament twice. We won back-to-back, winning the first Atlantic 10 regular season for 3 seasons, 3 NCAA tournament appearances, which prior to my time being there, LaSalle had never been to the NCAA tournament or won the Atlantic 10. So a number of firsts that we were able to accomplish as a team, records that we set, records that I was fortunate to be able to set as well, and to be someone that still to this day is one of the top goal scorers, assist holders, point holders in program history. It was really special. It really was an incredible eye-opening experience to be able to take a Philly school, an Atlantic 10 school, a smaller school, and put it on the national map for women's soccer and for sports. So I am so thankful for that time because it helped teach me a lot about myself, teach me a lot about sports, and honestly really prepared me so much more than I even knew 12 years ago. Now, when I look back, it prepared me for so much of what I do today.
I'm going to go back in time. I mean, I want to show my age here. You said, you've been out for 12 years, and I go back to LaSalle University. I'm going to go back to the days of Lionel Simmons and Doug Overton when, they were in a tournament in the, I think it was still 64 then, but I'm going back 40 years, and I remember, like some, Philly native sensation like yourself, Lionel Simmons, being big at Southern South Philly High School, and Doug Overton, another Philly product, but just I believe Lionel Simmons I want to say he was drafted by the Sacramento Kings at the time.
I believe so, yes.
I know Doug Overton spent some time with the Sixers, and coming out of LaSalle, representing like you're both of those gentlemen and yourself, just putting LaSalle, on the map. Just great to see folks like yourself and those two gentlemen, representing Philly. Like I said, I know I'm going back 40 years, but I mean, I remember the L train. I actually want to ask you, when did you realize sports broadcasting was your calling?
It's interesting because I studied public relations as my undergraduate degree, and I also had a
Mhm.
double minor in Spanish and psychology. And then I went on to have an opportunity to play some professionally before stepping away to coach college soccer, where I got my master's in educational leadership. So I
Mhm.
always tell people, jokingly enough, but in all seriousness, none of that is broadcasting, none of that is
Right.
journalism. And it was communications, it was educational leadership, which was focused less on the classroom and more on just instilling change and being a change maker, I should say, and a leader in the
Mhm.
community. So I do actively work in all those areas I study, just in a
Right.
different way. But it's wild to me because I remember like it was yesterday, my junior year of college, starting to recognize the internships that I had like 8 or 9 internships in college, and
Oh,
I
wow.
had several courses, of course, that were focused on more public relations, marketing, social media management. That's all that I was working in, was more of the press releases and brochures and event planning. And I recognized there were aspects of that I enjoyed. But I also was starting to recognize I don't really like, and I don't, and to this day, I'm still not built for, I should say, the office 9 to 5, 8 to 5, Monday to Friday routine. I'm someone that's a creative and wants to be able to have flexibility in my schedule and apparently a lot of chaos too. So I officially actually recognized it my junior year, but it wasn't until I was getting my master's at Lehigh University while I was a grad assistant coaching the women's soccer team that I started to
Nice.
make the leap, because it was at that
Right.
time that I was like, you know what? I had 2 extra years of education, which gave
Mhm.
me time to get involved with the Lehigh University athletics department. I also, at that time, had stopped playing soccer. I'd stepped away from attempting to play in the NWSL. And so when I stepped away from being a soccer player, it gave me time to focus on who I was as a professional, as a career woman. So I officially made the transition 2014 to 2016 in that 2-year master's degree program. But my initial thoughts that planted the seed was actually my junior year of college.
And I know you're a mentor. You're an author. You wrote a book. You're also a public speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I know I've interviewed you about probably three. This is the third time, and you know, you're on the show at you know, at the 50 last year with Al Norfleet and myself. You
Hmm.
know, it's just, I, you know, just like everything like you got your hands in, like every, you know, just wearing a lot of hats. And I don't know. I mean, I take my hat off to you, just the way you know, you're like everywhere. And my next question was, which was the biggest obstacle you had to overcome thus far in your career?
Sure. Well, thank you first of all for the kind words.
Yeah, my
I think
pleasure.
a big part of the obstacle is my why, as to, when people mention all the different sports, and I'm fortunate to cover literally every sport. I just did
Right.
the Winter Olympics trials for curling for Team USA, for mixed women's and men's curling, to lead into who was going to be representing Team USA this past Winter Olympics. That was with NBC Sports, but then I've been with FIFA doing stuff with FS1, around the World Cup and co-hosting a show for that, and then college games with ESPN that are covering literally every sport, of the mainstream football, basketball, soccer, to track, lacrosse, field hockey, swimming and diving, whatever it may be. And one of the obstacles I definitely faced was just being a woman in the industry, but
Mhm.
also wanting to find a way to separate myself from other people. So
Right.
I think those kind of go hand in hand. As a woman, especially a Black woman in this industry, you're always having
Mhm.
to prove yourself. You're always
Right.
having to go above and beyond. I can't do things the same way as others. I can't act the same way as others. But to be honest, in general, especially with social media and content creation, there are so many people that are getting involved, whether it's traditional journalism as we know it, or
Mhm.
even more of the content creation, storytelling, podcasting. And so for myself, I've just really enjoyed finding a way to create my own niche of being that person that can cover and knowledgeably cover and have an idea of the teams, the storylines, the players, the rules, the analysis around as many sports as possible. So I think one of those obstacles for me was, especially coming in out of my master's and taking that leap of faith to transition into the industry, I found from the beginning one of the things that helped me build my career from the ground up was the opportunity to create my own, to be so multifaceted, to find ways to separate myself and stand out and build my brand. And I think
Right.
that is one of those big obstacles that I still face to this day because it's always evolving, the industry is always changing. And so I'm always trying to find new ways to get my name out there, my work out there, and make sure I'm getting opportunities because there's tons of new networks and new
Mm-hmm.
shows and new, there's always something that's there. And I want to make sure that I'm someone that's in the know, in the mix, and in those opportunities as well. So definitely just opportunities to get opportunities to open up, but also to get opportunities to open up that I can show myself with the credibility, with the respect, with the knowledge that I bring to everything that I
Right.
do.
I know recently, like I said, I mentioned, before we came on air, I had Miss Kelsey Nicole Nelson on a couple weeks ago, and we got into the topic of, I believe it was the Washington. Maybe, man, correct me if I'm wrong. That I believe it was one of the Washington papers ended up closing down the sports
Yeah.
department, and what's your take on that? And like where I know now you got the Athletic out. You got a lot of writers like have gone there from especially here in Philly. But where do you see like the national newspapers, like sports departments, becoming obsolete going forward?
Honestly, I'm concerned because yes, I do think that's the case. I mean, I've been a writer, as you mentioned. I've always enjoyed writing, which is what actually got me into communications in general.
Right.
And it's a shame to see how much our attention span as society continues to decrease, as well as just like the appetite for the traditional getting the newspaper delivered to your house, reading the paper,
Right.
getting your front page stories because everything's so accessible at your fingertips on your phone, on social media, on apps. A lot of networks even have apps where they're giving you alerts, and I myself use those alerts to stay informed too. So I think there's
Right.
just so much changing in technology that, to be honest, not only are newspapers and traditional outlets like the Washington Post, and there's so many that I keep hearing that have unfortunately large layoffs and canceling, so many components of their network, of their outlets, but also I think radio, TV, a lot of changes in the industry are happening where I feel like every week I'm hearing another, not one or two, but significant number of
Wow.
people that are getting laid off. And a big part of that is because everyone's trying to find ways to get quicker access, to get
Mhm.
more creative, but to do it at a low cost, to do it at a way that's, three people doing the job of one, or hiring that
Right.
fresh out of college content creator that's creating TikToks and reels instead of, keeping on board the person that's maybe been there for 30, 40 years. And I'm not
Right.
saying one is right or the other, but layoffs in general are not good. And so I think beyond just newspaper and any form of written, because we're seeing it in the digital online publications of like blogs and written websites that have articles and newsletters and newspapers, people just aren't reading as much, but they're also not watching as much. They're not
Right.
watching the traditional, an hour long show anymore. Now they want to get quick 5 minutes or less updates or whatever it may be. So to be honest, that's a big part of when you talk obstacles of what I've also been keeping an eye on is
Mhm.
how do I stay up with the times, stay relevant, stay, up to date on what's the best technology, the best platforms, the best methods, because if you don't evolve with the times, unfortunately, you're gonna it's problematic for your career. So sadly, I think the Washington Post is another example of a way that we're gonna continue to see traditional newspapers and outlets change, and even just the paywall system I think is changing, Mike, of like
Mhm.
people recognizing maybe we can't have everything behind the paywall. We have to find a way
Right.
to get some access, but not all the access, so we can still get subscriptions. It's just a lot that's changing because you can truly get any sports updates traditionally for free at your fingertips.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been doing podcasting for 6 years. As soon as the pandemic hit, and
Hmm.
from what I heard over the, it's like podcasting is the future, and you
Yeah.
kind of see like sports talk radio becoming obsolete over time.
Yeah, I think podcasting is changing that because also,
Right.
like we're doing right now, I mean, you have the ability to talk virtually with anyone from anywhere.
Right.
And, whether it's, buying your own, you can buy your own lights and mics and all the things you can set up a studio
Right.
at home. And so I think that's also what's been a big challenger for traditional sports talk radio. Plus, sports talk radio has, been something people are typically listening to while they're driving into work or in and out of work or in their just in the car in general. And I know a lot more are moving to having apps, but
Hmm.
the radio is something you would listen to in the
Right.
car. And, now if you don't have a need for that because you can get those updates quicker, you're getting those on your phone. I know a lot of people, like you mentioned in terms of podcasting, that listen to podcasts in the car while they're driving
Right.
now or on the train or, whatever their commute may be. So I think there are more things that are competing with sports talk radio because it's just giving more people a chance to create the show, create the audience, create the topics they want versus
Hmm.
everyone it's oversaturated. There's less,
Right.
it's all supply and demand, and there's a lot of supply right now.
Well, I mean, like I said, doing Philly sports talk on podcasts it's just it's overkill.
Yeah.
It's like Eagles eat like it's all everybody talks about. It's like
Hmm.
it's just oversaturated and it's like just beating a dead horse
Yeah.
after a while. But actually I wanted to shift gears. I have a video that you did last August with I want to say seven. Correct me if I'm wrong here. 7 or 8 time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady. Which let me air this out. I'm gonna play this real quick.
This dropping in August is it's almost exactly 2 years after you became a minority owner for Birmingham City. What drew you to want to be a part of that club? Looking back to its history of 1875 since it started, what drew you to get into not only that club, but also soccer as well? Because as a soccer player myself, I'm loving the fact that you crossed over into the soccer world.
When I got done with playing football, it was an easy transition to be involved in sports ownership. And I'm doing that in American football with the Raiders. I'm certainly doing it with British football in Birmingham City. And I love what sports does for our communities. And it brings out the best in who we are. It allows us to live in the moment. And the fact that I can play a role in these organizations and try to help other people be successful is really exciting for me.
This dropping in August.
So accidentally hit that again. Was this the biggest interview of your career, would you say? Or interviewing time?
I think, I mean, it's definitely one of the biggest for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's for everybody, it's like, what do they characterize or who do they characterize as the most famous, the most important person? Because, I look back over the last couple of years of the people I've had a chance to sit down with. It's Maria Taylor, Stephen A. Smith, Greg Olson, it's Tom Brady, it's Alexis Ohanian, it's Hulk Hogan before he passed away. I've been
That's right.
Emmitt Smith. Yeah, like there's a lot of names now that I've been able to talk to. Johnny Manziel, and Tim Tebow, just depending on what lens you're looking through, I think determines it. I mean, even having a chance to interview and talk with former Eagles like Nick Foles and, having a chance to talk with Alshon Jeffrey and, just a lot, Malcolm Jenkins. So, yeah, I think, to be honest, Tom Brady was one of just those true pinch me moments for sure. And as an Eagles fan and a Philly sports fan, I, made sure to keep my composure, not to bring up anything around the Super Bowl because I was very tempted, but his PR person was very clear. We cannot ask certain questions, and that was off the table. But I was definitely in the back of my mind trying to figure out a way to work it in there. But, I think for me, the thing that I always go back to, because I often get asked who the biggest person is like, this is the expectation for me, like I'm on the international level now with getting involved with the World Cup and the Winter Olympics and doing more in bigger spaces. So, for me, I just look at it all as with each interview, it's a chance to connect with somebody different, bring my personality to that conversation, bring, some knowledge out of it. And then also to show, even for myself, it is a reminder of how far I've come. I started out in high school sports, and now
Right.
I'm sitting talking with Tom Brady, for example. So, it
Right.
definitely was a pinch me moment, and absolutely one of the biggest interviews I've done, for sure. I think that was one of the ones that people were like, "Whoa, Tom Brady." I mean, Tom doesn't give
Well,
it time to a lot of people. So,
right.
even though we weren't
Was
allowed to talk about the NFL specifically, and we had to
right.
focus on his series that was coming out and his ownership with Birmingham City, it still was Tom Brady. So
Right. I mean, was he cordial behind the scenes or just?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Tom is a great guy. He's honestly very much like exactly as you see on TV. Granted, we're not best friends, so I would not get the less
Right.
professional side of Tom. But everything he does, he knows people are always watching, cameras are always
Mhm.
rolling, someone's always
Oh,
like keeping an eye on him. So he's very media trained in that sense. And yes, very
no.
nice guy.
I was just curious because I mean, I've always heard that he was the type of teammate that would give like 90 players on a training camp roster. He would give everybody his phone number to like call
Yeah.
them if they wanted to talk. And I mean, I don't know about any other quarterback or never heard of stuff like that. But I mean, for a quarterback like that, doesn't matter if it's Tom Brady, Troy Aikman,
Hmm.
Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if that is true, I mean that's a pretty good, nice person to do that.
Yeah.
The last person you expect to make the team, like, oh, I got Tom Brady's number, like, just out of nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just,
No, it is. It makes sense. It is something that you don't often hear about
right.
as much,
I mean,
especially, sometimes you'll hear a quarterback getting their teammates gifts or something, but something as
right.
simple as here's my phone number, you can text me or call me, definitely says a lot about
Right.
him for sure. But
Oh, true.
he is from what I've seen in the time that I had to speak with him, definitely a very nice person. You wouldn't know he's,
Mhm.
won 8 Super Bowls and has
Right.
been MVP and is the GOAT. You wouldn't even know he's one of the most prevalent and prominent sports figures, but he's just a very down to earth person, to be honest.
My next question for you is: how do you stay mentally strong in an industry that is so competitive?
Oof, that's $1 million question. And one that I'm still trying to figure out every day. I think it's, for me at least, it's having grace. It's
Mhm.
understanding that every day is not going to be easy. And I think that we live in such a society with, especially because of social media, of only seeing people's highlight reels. And I know I have people all the time that will tell me, "You're so lucky. I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that." And I'm like, it's not all it seems. And I
Right.
think for me, it's getting that perspective of knowing, just like my journey is very difficult, so is everybody else's. And we all have the ups and the downs. And so I try to just continue to truly take it one day at a time. I'm working on that because I'm not that type of personality.
Right.
I'm typically the type that, especially because of my sports background, understanding if I want to get better at something, I can go work out extra, do extra, and I will pretty quickly be able to get better at it and see the rewards of it. But that's not the
Right.
way that life works. Sometimes
Mhm.
you truly need to give things time to evolve and time for your career to move the way it's supposed to. And so for me, it's being more patient. It's trusting. I'm a person of faith, so trusting God and trusting the timing, but also
Right.
having to trust every opportunity is not for me. And that might mean I don't get the job or no longer have the job or walk away from it, or the opposite, walk into an opportunity. So I just try to make sure every time I'm doing anything live, anything on camera, anything publicly, that I'm putting my best foot forward with integrity and trying to leave a positive impression. It's just, you never know in this industry. I know some of the biggest names that have been dealing with their show getting canceled, or
Right.
a big crazy story that comes out. You're in an instant, and this is one thing I heard, is you can spend years building your career and it can all burn down in a matter of seconds. So
Right.
I recognize that, your reputation, your integrity, your effort, all of that matters. And I try to just focus on what I can control, because as we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
newspapers, radio, there's so
Right.
much changing that I cannot
Exactly.
control. And I try not to focus on that. But it's hard, honestly. I've never tried to paint the picture like my life is perfect. It's very far from it. So
Right.
it's just trying to enjoy what I do and have the best optimistic personality with everything that I can at least control.
Has there ever been a live moment that tested your composure?
Um, Not really, because I
No.
think there have been moments that have been difficult of like I'm on live and we have an audio issue, or
Right.
the person that I'm supposed to be interviewing live is not there. I
Mm.
actually have had a one or two times. I will say I'm fortunate it hasn't happened often, but I have had a couple of times where I was interviewing someone and they didn't have the nicest personality, and so they were a bit short and arrogant and kind of rude, honestly. But I
Right.
think for me, I go into it knowing,
Hmm.
especially live, anything can happen and something is bound to happen that you do not expect. So
Oh, nice.
I kind of have learned to roll with the punches and know that something's going to happen. You prepare as best as you can. You try to make it your best. And there have been broadcasts I've walked away from like that was not great, but we got
Right.
through.
Well,
um,
hey,
yeah.
I can totally relate because, you know, never, I didn't go to school for communications. It was like a deer in headlights, like the first couple years. I mean, I tried this before, but, having my own show, but have gotten better at it. Thank God. Was just, rolling with the punches. And,
Hmm.
like you said, audio, you panic because I know there's been a couple interviews like, nobody could log on right, or, you know, you hit the enter button and, the microphone, the video, it's like, it's kind of like I'm getting frazzled myself because
Hmm.
stuff like that. And just, it's going to
Yeah.
say, you go through these snafus and, behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I try to also keep in mind, like, we're human,
Right.
and I remember one of my early mentors told me, it's okay to have the stumbles, the mistakes, because you're not a robot. And I think it shows that human side of you that is a bit more relatable. How you handle it, how, trying to stay composed. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
as simple as voice, if depending on how severe it is, of just voicing it, hey, listen, we're having an audio issue. We're going to try to fix this and then we'll get right
Right.
back. Like just being transparent because people know, especially because we are all
Right.
creating in some capacity. People know that things don't always go smoothly, that
Oh, right.
something's going to go wrong. And so I think in terms of like the broadcast technical issues, to me, like that's the least of my worries because I'm like, well, that's
Right.
understandable. It's out of my control. That's not anything I can drastically fix. And then the other components of just how you're navigating through the interview, how you're going through the show, that's the stuff I can prepare for and be ready for as best I can. So yeah, it is always something, to be honest. And I am just thankful whenever I can get to a broadcast without wanting to scream and pull my hair out and
Right.
running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But that's the side that people don't know. At the end of a game, at the end of a show, at the end of a broadcast, a lot of times I'm just like, whew,
Right.
okay, we survived, we got through.
Hmm.
And now I need to go home and just like decompress.
Decompress.
So
Right.
yes.
What would you say separates a good broadcaster from a great one?
That's a good question. I think it's something that I've actually tried to talk to, especially when I work with younger professionals or people that are trying to grow in the industry, is not to play it safe.
Mm.
And I think that we have this expectation as on air personalities that you have to speak perfectly and you have to look perfect. You can't have a hair out of place and
Right.
everything has to be perfect, essentially. And
Hmm.
that's not the case. I think to me, some of the better broadcasters, what makes people great, are the people that have the ability to be themselves, bring personality, own your stuff. If you do mess up, you mispronounce a name. Sometimes you're going so quickly, you mispronounce a name or a word, quickly
Hmm.
correct it and keep it moving. And I
Right.
think there's this expectation that you're taught that everything has to be perfect, which takes away from who you are because none of us are perfect. You're going to have an
Exactly.
every once in a while. You're going to have a stumble every once in a while. You're going to forget and maybe even lose your train of thought. But
Right.
can you ensure that you're bringing good questions? You're bringing good topics. You have done the research and prepared, so you have the knowledge. You are, showing up to the part in terms of how you look and things like that. So for me, I think that's the difference. It's the person that finds the way to be themselves, enjoy what they're doing, and
Hmm.
knowing that everyone's not going to like you. You know,
Right.
I've had the trolls or the comments or the negative comments, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. The stuff that I've heard, the stuff that I've seen, but that's where you have to understand that as you're growing your audience, as you're growing in your platform, there's also the negative side that's growing as well. So it's not trying to be liked by everyone. I think that's what the
Right.
great broadcasters understand. You look at people like someone like Stephen A. Smith.
Hmm.
You're not trying to be liked by everybody. You're trying to do your job.
Right.
And part of that means sometimes people are going to disagree with you. Sometimes people are just not going to like what you have to say. And that's okay too, as long as you know I'm not lying out here. I'm saying actual factual things. I've done the research around and I'm bringing, my best to the table. So I think it's just that ability to know, don't be perfect, be yourself, have a
Hmm.
high bar, a high standard of what you're trying to accomplish, but know
Right.
that you have to find ways to truly bring that authenticity in everything you do.
Right. One last question. What legacy do you want to leave in sports media or everything or the many hats that you wear?
That's the big thing for me also that I always go back to is to my why. And when I first sought out to get into this industry, again, starting back in my junior year, I remember saying I wanted to interview LeBron James, write a book, and be a broadcaster. And I've done 2 out of 3 of those things.
Three.
So, so for me, when I had that idea though, it wasn't about I want to be famous, I want to be rich, I want to be a celebrity. It was about I wanted to truly be able to use my platform to provide a voice for the voiceless.
Right.
And I'm reminded every day for the most part of how I'm doing that, whether it's the direct people around me and my family and my friends that get to see, my journey firsthand,
Hmm.
whether it's also people that I don't even know that will reach out. I know when my an episode of the show that I've been doing with FIFA around the World Cup aired, I had somebody that reached out and said, just thank you so much for showing Philly and representing Philly in the right light, And so I don't take those for granted, those moments
Right.
where I can see. Sometimes again, I might see the person face to face, I might get the email, I might get the message, whatever it may be. But I know for myself to be that representation, to be that positive influence, to make an impact, that's what it's all about for me. That's what my legacy that I'm building is to truly try to leave this world a better place, this industry, everything I do a better place than it was when I came into it. And knowing that whether it's directly my family lineage of my future children and things and grandchildren or people I don't even know that are
Right.
strangers to me, just knowing that in some way in this crazy hectic world I'm
Hmm.
doing something positive to make a difference. So that's my legacy, just truly providing a voice, providing representation, providing storytelling that I think that needs to be told, and the types of interviews I think need to be had to ensure that I'm finding a way to make a positive influence around me.
Oh, like I said, earlier in the show, I've had the honor to interview you probably the third time now, and I've, followed your career, and you just seem to be, all over, all the sports conglomerate networks, and just, you're, you like you said, you're an author, motivational speaker, a model as well, which I don't think many people know about that, but you've gone down a lot of avenues and explored.
Yeah.
And I take my hat off to you because, just trying to, follow yourself, Miss Nelson, just to find feedback and, myself trying to get into this business. Hopefully I'll get to your level one day. I don't know. I'm a
One
little,
day for sure, Mike.
I hope. I mean, I'm just, like I said, Tony Cotillo, who's around my age. I know he's, got his own platform going on. Just, you got to keep rocking it out and, roll it, it's cliche, rolling with the punches, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the only way you're gonna, if I don't get anywhere with it, I mean, it's an honor and a privilege, to meet somebody like you and some other fortunate big names that I met. Like I said, Miss Patty Jackson last week
Oh, yeah.
was like it's not every day you come in contact or have the honor or the privilege to interview people like yourself, which, I'm great. It's like you got to be graceful and appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always
Absolutely.
it's not always about money, but it's the experience of it.
Yeah,
But
definitely. And I appreciate you for, all the hard work that you do because it is really
thank you.
difficult in this industry. So I know, as you mentioned, like 6 years ago,
Mm.
when you really got going in the podcasting industry, when you look back on where we both are now compared to then, it's fantastic to
Oh.
see your growth as well. So I was just listening to this sermon and this discussion. I was saying like you've never missed your moment, and I think we
Right.
all at times feel like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right time? Is it too late for me? And whatever you really have your heart set on, you personally or anybody that's watching, it's
Thank
understand that
you.
you always can make that happen. Just continuing to chip away and get better with each
Right.
day is going to happen. So, there's so many platforms and so many opportunities in this industry. That's one
Right.
thing I tell people is like, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing because everyone's trying to get to these opportunities, but there's so much out there that truly everybody can have a seat at a table. It might
right.
not all be the same table, but there's so many different great tables and opportunities and networks and platforms that are available. So the sky's the limit for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's everybody thinks you just show up and ask questions, but I mean, thanks to the two gentlemen, Tom and Norman Will in Cole County Entertainment, they trained me on how to, with the videos, like,
Mhm.
the intro, closing it out, just, you don't realize how much you put into it. I mean, I know, it's just, just showing up, it's like I said, it's not just showing up and, X amount of questions, like the research,
Mhm.
finding the videos and just, doing background, just researching everybody
Yeah.
behind the scenes, which I do love it. So,
Yes. And that's the important part too. Loving what
all
you
right.
do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll say I've always wanted to do sports talk radio, but I just, I'm sorry, I didn't go to school for communications. I know it's, widespread competition, but hey, if I can get in through, the back door here, why not?
Exactly.
But I don't want to. I do appreciate your time, coming on, and we'll have to chop it up. I mean, Al and I are thinking about getting at the 50 back, hopefully, with this new Eagles up and coming season. But I
Yes.
want to thank you for coming on tonight. I appreciate everybody checking in. Want to ask you, where can everybody reach you on your platforms?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. It's at Renee P. Washington. So my middle name P is in all my handles as well. So Renee P. Washington on literally every platform: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I'm growing. I finally got on TikTok. And then Twitter's just or X, excuse me, is just Renee P. Wash. And then I always tell people, if you want to check out my website, reneepwashington.com, you can reach
Mhm.
out to me through that as well. I have everything I do is funneled through my website, so it's easy to check out all the things I'm working on and games I'm a part of and broadcasts and networks that I'm working with, as well as events that I'm speaking at. So yeah, everything at reneepwashington.com or Renee P. Washington on social for my handles. And I appreciate you again for having me on. It's always a pleasure to chat with
Yeah.
you and always a pleasure to have a chance to connect and see all the great things you've got going on, Mike. So thank you so
Thank you.
much as well.
Likewise, we'll have to come on. I know we got baseball season, but
Oh yeah.
now the birds. But want to thank you again, Renee, for coming on and chopping it up. And wanted to just tell everybody out there, everybody be safe. find out, reach out to a friend. If you see somebody going through, check them out, because mental health awareness is very serious. And, you never know when somebody's going through an everyday struggle, especially just in these times of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But Renee, thank you again. Everybody have a good night, be safe, and a good week, and God bless.
Yeah. Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside, feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly flag, oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist, so rare. Fuji's Philly flag, we're living the